released. In this country, the cause of a fatal plane crash, it looks like human error. And tonight, the people behind the unemployment figures. Do we really know how many are looking for work?
This is NBC Nightly News, reported by Garrick Utley in Washington.
Good evening. Once again tonight, we're getting signals that the release of another hostage may be near. In Iran, the Tehran Times, a paper close to the government there, said today that 1 or 2 Western hostages could be freed soon. In Beirut, one leading figure of the organization holding hostages said one of them may be released within a week. Another leader said it could happen even tomorrow. Once again, the signals are mixed, but they are now at least pointing in the same direction. In Damascus, Syria, our correspondent Tom Aspel has the latest. Good evening, Tom.
Garrick, Israel broke the deadlock by releasing 51 Arab prisoners Wednesday. Tonight, the kidnappers appear ready to reciprocate. Freedom for the foreign hostages may finally be near.
Sheikh Ahmed Talib, a senior member of Hezbollah, the group believed to be behind the kidnappings, said today a British hostage will be released very soon to keep the momentum going. It could be Jackie Mann, the 77-year-old Briton whose photograph was attached to one of the kidnap group's statements issued Wednesday. Mann's wife, Sunny, is in Beirut waiting.
No, I have no special information. I just feel this time that he will be released.
U.S. officials feel freedom for 5 American hostages is near too. John Kelly, an undersecretary for Middle East Affairs, was in Lebanon today for talks which no doubt included the fate of the hostages.
We support the efforts of the United Nations Secretary General, and we hope for more progress.
Secretary General Javier Perez de Cuellar is in Saudi Arabia after talks in Tehran, receiving praise for brokering an agreement between all sides aimed at freeing the foreign hostages in Lebanon, Arab prisoners in Israeli jails, and engineering the return of the remains of those who've died in captivity. Here in Damascus tonight, Foreign Minister Farouk al-Shara seems to think the end could really be near.
Well, we are in Syria optimistic because the process of releasing the hostages has already started.
So the next step, Garrick, it appears that is up to the kidnap groups in Lebanon.
Tom, you indicated in your report that if the hostage is released, the next one might be British rather than American. Why?
Well, Garrick, we're hearing from Lebanon that Hezbollah expected Sheikh Abdul Karim Obeid, one of their major figures held by the Israelis, to be released on Wednesday. He did not show up. Apparently they're blaming Washington, so it may well be that they'll keep the Americans for last.
Everyone, of course, knows what is required for a release of all the hostages, Arabs, Israelis, Westerners. So why does this process continue, one release, one step, one hostage at a time?
Difficult to say, Garrick, because there's no direct dialogue between the groups and Israel, which seems to be the target of most of their demands at the moment. They're having to go through the United Nations. It's a long and complicated process, and presumably the answers they're giving back in the form of one hostage, one body at a time, just seems to be taking some time.
All right, Tom Aspel in Damascus, Syria, thank you. Turning now to the Soviet Union in Moscow, Mikhail Gorbachev found himself in a very unusual situation today, being questioned by investigators. They are investigating what really did happen during last month's coup attempt. Gorbachev testified for 2 hours, no details on what he said. And this was a significant day in the newly freed Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, at least as far as the United States is concerned. The American Secretary of State James Baker visited them for the first time. Here's John Dancy.
The United States had been waiting for this day for more than 50 years, ever since the Soviet Union swallowed up the Baltics in 1940. Now the countries are independent, and James Baker came to show the flag and commend them on their independence. In Estonia, a few people going about their Saturday chores stared at his motorcade without much enthusiasm, perhaps because there's been a parade of high-level delegations through here since independence. In Lithuania, however, an enthusiastic crowd waited for Baker outside the president's office. But Baker brushed past with only a wave to get to a meeting with President Vytautas Landsbergis. The crowd was clearly audible outside. In each nation he visited, Baker presented leaders with flags of the countries which had flown in the State Department lobby, while the Baltics were incorporated in the Soviet Union.
This flag, or one exactly like it, has flown in that lobby for 50 years.
Baker's visit was more symbol than substance. The U.S. is willing to offer the Baltics technical assistance, but little direct financial aid.
We will be making available roughly $14 million for the 3 Baltic states, which we
$14 million is approximately what the Pentagon spends every half hour. The economic problems of the Soviet Union and the Baltics are so huge that Baker's top aides will not even talk of creating a wealthy country. Rather, one of them said, success will lie in creating an atmosphere where democratic reforms can continue. A limited goal, but it may be all that's possible right now. John Dansley, NBC News, in Tallinn, Estonia.
And as we cover our world this day, we'll see next how human error may well have caused the crash of a commuter plane, killing 14 people in this country. And also tonight, Alexander Solzhenitsyn talks. The best-known and rarely seen Russian exile talks about whether he will return home to Mother Russia.
This neighborhood produces most of our Olympic team stars. It's where you'll find the Emerson Flag Company. They send thousands of flags to the Olympic Games. And for rush orders, they use express mail from the Postal Service. It offers convenient pickup service, guaranteed overnight delivery, plus great low prices, which could help a small company like this have a banner year.
We deliver for you.
Coming to you hot and fresh from Domino's Pizza, Domino's Pepperoni Pizza Feast with extra pepperoni and cheese. Now a medium's just $8.99 or two for $12.99.
Nobody knows like Domino's how you like pizza at home.
I thought all no-stick cooking sprays were just like Pam. Boy, was I wrong.
Only Pam is all natural with no preservatives. Only Pam.
And Pam adds virtually no fat or calories for healthier meals.
All natural Pam, a healthier way to cook.
Human error. We are, of course, all fallible, but it seems inexcusable when it's the cause of a tragedy, of an airline disaster, a crash. It happens more often than we might think, and it now seems it has happened yet again in the crash of a commuter plane in Texas on Wednesday. 14 people died there. The probable cause, missing screws. Robert Hager has more.
It appears to have been an incredible mistake. Mechanics forgot to screw on part of the plane's tail. Simple as that. The day before the crash, during maintenance in Houston, mechanics had removed what's called the leading edge of the plane's horizontal stabilizer. When they put it back on, they left out all 43 screws on top. It was only screwed in on the bottom. Next day, the plane somehow made it from Houston to Laredo, Texas, intact. But on its way back, the leading edge ripped loose, 60 miles out of Houston. That alone would have disturbed the crucial flow of air over the plane's tail section, but it may also have done more serious damage to the tail. National Transportation Safety Board Chairman James Kolstad describes what the cockpit tape recorder picked up next.
All of a sudden, there was a loud noise, followed a few seconds later by an even louder noise. That was followed by a series of warning horns and messages. Then there was a very loud whooshing sound, and then the end of the tape.
The whooshing indicates a hole had been ripped in the plane as it spun 11,000 feet to Earth.
It's said that in a complex world, sometimes it's the simple things that get you. And if the scenario for this accident proves accurate, it'll take its place among a select group of mishaps caused by human blunders so simple, they hardly seem imaginable.
For instance, Detroit, 1987. Northwest pilots forgot to extend their wing flaps for takeoff. 156 died. Washington, 1982. Air Florida pilots forgot to turn on their engine de-icing device in a snowstorm. 78 died. And Miami, 1983. Eastern Airlines mechanics forgot to seal the oil lines in each of a plane's 3 engines. All the engines ran out of oil over the Caribbean. Miraculously, pilots got the plane back safely to Miami. In Texas this week, passengers were not so lucky. 14 died. Sometimes it's the simple things. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
And now let's turn to politics, and things may start to get interesting in the race for the White House. The Democrats are coming out to run, finally. Yesterday it was Virginia's Governor Doug Wilder. Bob Kerrey, Jerry Brown, and Bill Clinton are reportedly getting set to enter the race. Former Senator Paul Tsongas already has. Not necessarily all household names, but they will be soon. Tomorrow, for example, Iowa Senator Tom Harkin will announce his candidacy. Who is he? Here's Andrew Mitchell.
He's a dyed-in-the-wool populist preaching that old-time liberal religion, even willing to embrace party figures that others would just as soon forget.
If they want me to repudiate my lifelong friendship with and my high regard for George McGovern, if they want me to do that, why, they can just go straight to hell.
Brash and confrontational, Harkin is a big hit with labor.
So when I hear George Bush and his fat cat Republican friends tell me that they're building a conservative opportunity society, I got a one-word reply. Bull.
His platform, America Comes First.
What about a domestic program for this country, Mr. Bush? I say, George Herbert Walker Bush, unpack your suitcase. Stay here in America a little bit longer.
Why do you always use his middle names? He doesn't.
Because I think it describes where he comes from. So I think George Bush, as someone once said, George Bush was born on third base and he's always thought he hit a triple.
Harkin grew up hard-scrabble poor, the son of a coal miner who died of black lung disease. He's a pro-choice Catholic, sponsored a major civil rights bill for the disabled, and this week proposed junking last year's budget deal to cut $3 billion from defense to spend on social programs.
Do we continue to throw billions of dollars to combat the now non-existent threats of the past?
His fellow Democrats helped Republicans vote him down. Harkin also went against the crowd last January, demanding a war debate before party leaders were ready to take on the president.
This Senate should debate this issue today and tomorrow. We are assembled, we are here, and we should decide just what the constitutional prerogatives of the president are.
If I'd been president, I may not have been so quick to get in, but I wouldn't have been so quick to get out either. I'd have made sure that Saddam Hussein wouldn't be in power today.
Why is Tom Harkin qualified to be president?
Because I spent my life growing up under tough circumstances. I know what it's like to start at the very bottom and make it to the top.
Harkin is an angry man waging a campaign of class warfare. Some party leaders think he is too angry and too liberal. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
And we'll have more news in just a moment.
I swim, I jog. I love junk food. Sometimes even I get constipation. When it happens to me, I take this little pill. It's X-Lax. Surprised?
More people choose X-Lax than any other laxative. Today's X-Lax gives you a choice. Extra gentle pills when you need a little help. Regular pills when you need a little more. Today's X-Lax for regular people who sometimes aren't.
A small touch, a certain look. It's the little things that are worth the most. Which is why every Delta faucet gives you more than you'd ever expect for the money. Giving you the money for those things you can't even put a value on. Delta, the way water is brought to life.
Joanna.
Charles.
Theirs was a love affair. A love of butter stopped short by cholesterol.
I've dreamt of giving you this.
I can't believe it's not butter.
I Can't Believe It's Not Butter is still the only spread flavored with real sweet cream buttermilk for a fresh butter taste, but without the cholesterol to spoil the romance.
I never thought I'd be swept off my feet again.
I Can't Believe It's Not Butter, the taste you love without the cholesterol.
On Focus tonight, America's discouraged workers, the uncounted unemployed. Every month, we get a number thrown at us, the unemployment rate in this country. But what does that number really mean? Who does it include and exclude? Is it an accurate picture of work or lack of it in this land? The answer is yes, but, and there are a lot of buts, people out of work. Jeff Madrick has been looking at the numbers and the people. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening, Garrick. The economy is not creating the new jobs that only a few months ago many economists had predicted it would. Yet the jobless say they are being ignored because the official numbers don't tell the whole story. These unemployed workers say President Bush is painting an unjustly rosy picture of the economy. And this week, they turned out to protest his appearance at a political fundraiser in Philadelphia.
You know, I guess they can paint any kind of a picture they want. It's their canvas. But they ain't artists. George Bush ain't an artist.
Officially, 8.5 million people are out of work. Officially, that makes the unemployment rate 6.8%. But that doesn't include all kinds of unemployed workers, a fact Commissioner Janet Norwood of the Bureau of Labor Statistics readily concedes.
It reflects the employment picture, but it does not reflect economic hardship.
Namisha Parikh lost her job last December, but she is not counted among the unemployed. She is considered a discouraged worker because at times she stopped looking for a job for a period of 4 weeks or more.
It's like I go through spurts when I'm on this pavement all the time, and then I just take a couple of weeks off and, you know, get away from it all and then come back and try new approaches.
James McDonald lost his job as a computer specialist 18 months ago and is also considered a discouraged worker.
I think somehow local governments, state, and federal, I don't think they think it's as bad as it is out there with the number of people seeking.
The 1 million discouraged workers and the 6 million part-time workers looking for full-time work are not counted.
In order to be counted as unemployed in our surveys, one must not have worked, not even for 1 hour, during the survey week.
What rate reflects the real state of unemployment? The government calculates that if you include discouraged workers, the rate rises from 6.8% to 7.6%. If they include just half of the part-time workers looking for full-time work, the rate rises to 10%. And if there had been merely normal growth in those looking for work during the last 12 months, it would have added yet another percentage point to the unemployment rate. In fact, luckily for the Bush administration, because it's so rare, the number of people looking for work has not grown at all over that period. The population has slowed, but many have just given up.
Personally, I don't think they know we're out there, to be honest with you.
The number of part-time workers looking for full-time work has been unusually high for a number of years now. Some experts say that's another sign that the economy is not providing the kinds of jobs needed. Garrett?
Jeff, after you include all of these unemployed, how does this current recession compare to recessions in the past?
Well, surprisingly, Garrick, it is not as bad as the 82-83 recession. That was the steepest since the end of World War II, in fact, the steepest since the Great Depression. But if you make the same adjustments to the other recessions since World War II, that is, there were discouraged workers then, there were part-time workers. If you make those same adjustments and consider the slowing of the labor force, this recession is just about as bad as any of them, including the 1974 recession, which was the second worst since the end of World War II. So the talk of mild recession doesn't make much sense.
All right, Jeff, interest rates are going down again. The Fed acted again this past week. How soon will this have an impact on employment?
The Federal Reserve cut the discount rate. They are followers, not leaders. It is not enough. It's come too late. I don't think it's going to, nobody thinks it's going to boost jobs immediately. It's just too little too late. They're lagging.
Jeff Madrick in New York, thank you. Coming up next here on Nightly News, we go back overseas for an important agreement today in South Africa.
Ooh, honey, don't come near me, please.
Oh, I can't. No, it's not a good idea.
Oh, no, baby, not right now.
Stop, sweetie. You don't want to get too close.
Fight morning breath with Scope. Scope has 2 powerful ingredients to kill 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath.
Kiss me.
What are you waiting for?
Great kiss.
You may kiss me now.
Scope, the best thing first thing in the morning.
It was a stupid mistake, but I was in a hurry. So when I finally realized my briefcase was gone, I knew I'd never find it. Worse, my wallet and cash, credit cards, and checkbook were in it, and I was out of state. Oh, for a friendly face. Thank goodness I bank at First Interstate. And thank goodness for Keith Frank. He canceled my credit cards so no one could use them, got me cash, and treated me like I was banking at home. Now that's extra mile service.
If you want extra mile service, come to First Interstate Bank. We go the extra mile for you, guaranteed.
I'm alive, Jeff Hashimoto.
I'm alive, Rhonda Williamson.
I'm alive, Sonia Schofield.
I'm alive, Howard Weber.
Want to get more out of life?
I'm alive, Jessica Weber.
Get airbags. See your Allstate agent for a list of cars with airbags.
We're alive.
I don't want to marry him, Mom. Just date him.
My head.
He'll get a job.
Where's my Aniston?
For splitting headaches, Anacin works better than regular Bear or Bufferin. So take Anacin for splitting headaches.
You're gonna love his earring.
Ever notice how wonderfully plump plums are? How luscious and sweet? Just like these Sunsweet pitted prunes. Now, maybe that's just a coincidence, but I don't think so. Only one prune tastes Sunsweet.
Still another footnote tonight on Iraq and its ability to produce the bomb. According to a United Nations study, Saddam Hussein was just a few years away from being able to produce nuclear weapons, 2 or 3 of them by the mid-1990s. That according to a report in the New York Times today. The UN study says that Iraq has now lost that capability because of the war of the Allied bombing during the fighting. We turn now to South Africa today. Much of the violence there has been blacks against blacks, followers of competing movements, their differences drawn largely on tribal lines. Today, a major effort to stop the killing and get on with the peace process among blacks and between them and whites in South Africa. Leaders met to sign an important agreement. Will it work? In Johannesburg, Charles McLean.
Waving traditional Zulu weapons, supporters of the Inkatha Freedom Party surrounded the downtown Johannesburg hotel where the National Peace Convention was being held. South African President F.W. de Klerk and African National Congress leader Nelson Mandela ignored the mob as they arrived at the conference. Inkatha chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi played to his crowd of supporters. Inside, de Klerk, Mandela, and Buthelezi sat side by side, a symbolic moment of triumph for the peace process in South Africa. They signed an agreement which they hope will end black-on-black violence in the townships. More than 10,000 people have been killed in the last 7 years, 130 in the past week alone. The ANC and Inkatha blame each other for the fighting, but Mandela believes the South African police are also to blame, claiming government security forces have sided with Inkatha against the ANC. The peace plan will place new restrictions on the police and set up a commission to investigate those who violate the accords. De Klerk was optimistic about the plan's success.
The darkness of violence is making way for the light of peace.
Mandela was more guarded.
We are under no illusion that this accord is a magic wand. Our signatures alone cannot light the path to peace.
Today's peace accords are a first step. As the conference ended, the delegates prayed that it was, at last, a step in the right direction. Charles McLean, NBC News, Johannesburg.
Art news in Florence, Italy today, an attack on one of the world's most famous pieces of art, Michelangelo's David. A man pulled a hammer from his coat and struck the statue several times before he was restrained. An inch-long piece from one of the figure's toes was knocked off. The good news tonight, yes, it can be repaired.
Poison ivy, insect bites, rashes. Too many choices.
You only need one. Cordaid.
Stop the itch and heal the rash with a brand doctors recommend most.
Present arms.
Cordaid, the only aid you need.
I saw my doctor because the pain was so bad. I was afraid I needed surgery for my hemorrhoids. I was itching. The burning was awful. But my doctor said my hemorrhoids weren't serious. I didn't need surgery. He told me it was time I started using Preparation H.
Preparation H helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues and often brings relief from pain, itching, and burning for hours.
What a difference Preparation H makes.
Doctor recommended Preparation H.
Here's a great big idea. From Presto, professional salad shooter slicer shredder. Big capacity and power. Special blades to point and slice thick, slice thin, shred, even ripple cut. Right where you want. From Presto.
They're coming. Dow Bathroom Cleaner with scrubbing bubbles. It's 50% stronger than original Dow Bathroom Cleaner. We work even harder, so you don't have to.
If you're serious about whole grain, remember, Wheaties has it. These guys don't. Better get your whole grain.
You better eat your Wheaties.
Mannington has invented a floor that breaks the shine barrier. Through all kinds of torture, Mannington Gold shines brighter and longer than even Armstrong's best floors. Mannington Gold, a shining example of what a floor should be.
If Alexander Solzhenitsyn ever wrote his resume, and we doubt he ever would need to, it would probably say something like this: Russian writer, political prisoner, dissident, Nobel Prize winner, and finally exile. 15 years ago, he came to these United States. He settled in Vermont, and little has been seen or heard of him since. But now, his mother Russia has changed, perhaps more than any novelist could imagine. And today, Solzhenitsyn talked about that. Fred Briggs met him at a parade.
This is Vermont's bicentennial year, and towns across the state are celebrating as they did today in Cavendish. One of its residents had more than a bicentennial to celebrate. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who moved here in 1976, was thinking of the changes in the country he left. He says he wasn't surprised.
What I predicted a quarter century ago has now happened. Back in the West at that time, they didn't either did not believe it or did not think that that was necessary, what I called for and predicted.
Solzhenitsyn, a political prisoner who wrote vividly of life in the Gulag, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1974 and came to Vermont, loved it for its simple ways and long winters, so like those in Russia. He's been reclusive and strangely silent about the recent demise of the Communist Party. Today, he told NBC News things are changing so rapidly, what he might say one week would be out of date the next.
Well, just the whole shakeup and the economic collapse in the Soviet Union is dangerous for everybody.
Solzhenitsyn says he does support a free market, although it will be hard to implement. As for his own plans, is it your intention to return to Russia now in view of what has happened there?
I was always sure that I would one day return. Before these events under the KGB and the Communist Party, I did not have the possibility to return.
His wife and son